No, I think that's a good point. I think the distinction, or maybe the errancy in that particular line of thought is that it's more important to get people in and get them attached to a church. But if it's not a solid church body, if it's not grounded in faith, if it's not grounded in what the truth is, like all you're doing is taking the main culture, softening up a little bit, making it look like Christ, and then trying to see if people don't know the difference.
Well, but that's not a faith.
But
that was the same thing that they kind of got in trouble. Were doing is they were trying to make the church hip, countercultural. Like, there's a certain sect of population that wants to be countercultural anyway. So they look at the culture and they go, not me, not this guy. I'm not following the mold, And so they present a church that way. And in all actuality, the truth of it is, the church is that way. The body of Christ is that way. But they try to make it something it's not. You don't have to sweeten up the gift of salvation and God's love with a lot of whiz-bang. It's enough whiz-bang as it stands.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, how can you get any more radical than, the tenets and the faith and the perseverance of the message of Jesus Christ? I mean, that you live that out honestly, you'll see some radical living.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the truth of it too. I mean, if you are honestly trying to follow Christ, you will see a radical change in yourself that you didn't even think was possible, and you'll wonder, even 6 months down the road, you'll look back and go, "Who was that guy? Who was that guy I used to be?"
Well, and you don't even once you're there, you don't even recognize whether you're countercultural or not. Take Mohair Baptist man. You know what I'm saying? John's trolling around doing all kinds of weird stuff. He doesn't know any different.
No.
Like, he looks at the culture. He doesn't look and say, oh, I fit in funny with the culture. He says, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. This is how I'm going to live. How the culture perceives that is not on my radar anymore. And that's not saying that as a church, we don't have to recognize where our culture is at. Because, frankly,
we still have to be culturally relevant.
Well, but, it's the same thing as, like, if you don't know where the culture is at and you don't know where the culture has fallen, you don't know how to address the culture. It's the same, justification for the Old Testament rules. I mean, you don't know that you're disobeying God until He gives you rules to show you how far you've disobeyed Him, so that you know you need the.
You're like, oh, I didn't do that. Whoops. Yeah, exactly.
So we need to be able to assess the culture, and I think as a church, it's foolish to hold back and not move with certain things in culture, like music, for example. Like, if we decided we're not going to move out of the 30s with the tunes because for some reason we believe Christ loved the 30s.
I'm not giving up the banjo.
we need a harp and a tambourine, and that's all we need.
I always find it funny, like, when people criticize some types of music that the church has nowadays, as if the organ was around when Christ was living. You know what I'm saying? Like that, it wasn't there when
right.
He
It was a guy
playing
a sheepskin and a mallet. And now look where worship, came to an organ, and then those same people with the sheepskin and mallet are going, "What is this terrible? I can't believe the Lord would never approve of this." Yeah. And so now we go, whatever. 80 years later, now we got distorted guitars and a drum set, and people are, "This is terrible. Jesus is not in this music."
Exactly. On that note, I have to make a case for the Hipster Church now.
Okay, go.
They're doing some things right. I went to go see As I Lay Dying and Demon Hunter a while back here in Des Moines. And for those of you who don't know, they're both huge Christian metal bands. The majority of the people there were full of tattoos, had huge gauge ears, stuff like that. And I talked to a bunch of people at that show, and they all told me the same thing. Yeah, I'd go to church, but nobody wants me. And that's not right.
That's not genuine faith. That's not a church living out genuine faith.
Right. So that's that. So you're actually we're talking about three different body of believers here. One, we're talking about the hipster church, which softens the faith to get people in. Yeah. We're talking about an
accepting church,
right? We're talking about the other end of that spectrum, which is the church that is so stuck in their own holiness that they don't leave room for anyone else to come in.
The church of the 99 sheep that were together.
Right,
and
that's it.
Together.
Yeah, we're fine. There's no flock astray. We can't have one more coming in. We're serving Christ.
We only
here,
care about
fine.
us.
And then you're missing the true body of believers that doesn't care, what this guy looks like, what music he plays, or what he's got going on. And so there's three distinct possibilities there, which you don't have to necessarily fall into either one of the ends of the spectrum to be the accepting church. The accepting church looks the same whether you go to church in a 1920s farmhouse or you hold church service inside a school building.
Well, but I guess in that example, almost I think the cleanest way to think of it is again, the church should be, if the church doesn't recognize the culture, they don't recognize the distinction between the guy with the tattoos and the pious jean skirt lady. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, if there's not a difference, you don't look out and say, that guy is different. He's a different culture than me.
Yeah.
He's of the world. Like, if you're not making that distinction because you're looking at their heart, and frankly, you're looking at opportunity. This is one of the things that I was thinking about this week. Is how does God see us, and from there, how do we then see other people, and are we doing Christ justice on how we look at His people? Because you can run into people who end up being judgmental, or I don't bias probably isn't the right word, but anyway, but I think a lot of it derives from how we look at people. Like, do you see somebody who's living a terrible life? Frankly, I mean, they're living it. They're whatever. They're sleeping around. They're what's the stuff from the lady from the Dear Abby column?
Oh,
they're fat.
Yeah, they're fat.
they're whatever, right?
You'll
Like
have to check out the Dear Abby column advice that we got last week. It was classic.
So they're living a lifestyle that's inconsistent with what Christ has asked you for. Do you look at that person and do you assess how many things they have done wrong and how they're living their life incorrectly, or do you see them with eyes for grace? Right? Do you see that person and think there's a lot of opportunity for grace there?
Right.
How
God's
can we
glory
get in
can
on
really be
that?
shown through you?
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Because I think if we look, it's not wrong to assess the situation. Like we have, in fact, within the Christian responsibility, we have responsibility within each other to hold each other accountable, provide direction. That's a responsibility we have. But outside of that circle, we should be seeing opportunity for Christ's grace, not opportunity to evaluate, what that looks like compared to me.
Well, and that's the exact same that we talked about in that article last week, or an opportunity to elevate yourself above this person, and stand on your own holy ground, like you consecrated yourself.
Yeah.
And we run into that too. And, sometimes, some of that's just part of our fallen world. Some of that's part of the sin that we walked into. I can't help myself from doing that half the time. I don't open my mouth about it, and I know I shouldn't have done it. But I'll look at some guy and go, you gotta be kidding me, dude. In fact, I found this exact quandary going. Me and the wife went to Red Lobster this week. It was her birthday, and so we went out, to dinner. It was awesome. But I was standing. There's 2 double doors at the Red Lobster, and they have windows on them. Well, it's crowded in the Red Lobster, so I'm standing in front of one, and people keep coming in the other, keep coming in the other one. And then about 10 minutes later, it shifts for some reason. Everyone wants to come in the door that I'm standing in front of, and so it happened. And then it happened again. And now I'm getting irritated. Like, there's a window here. I'm obviously standing here. There's obviously not someone standing over here. Why do you keep coming in this door? So now I'm completely irritated with people. Really irritated. And I think, this is kind of a funny situation. And then I think, I really am mad at these people. Like, I'm really starting to get actually irritated. This seems like a simple situation. There's no one over there. Go in the door. and I think I'm not. It sounds kind of lame, but I honestly, in that moment, I thought, I'm not looking at these people at all how God looks at these people.
Yeah.
And it's a simple, stupid, evaluation of the situation. But I honestly thought, I'm not looking at these people at all how Christ sees them. Like, I'm looking at a particular funny, situation or whatever. But I think, I have no idea anything about these people. I didn't think 1 second about what they got going, what their relationship with Christ could be. If
they were just an irritation to you.
Yeah. And I thought, I'm not living right. This ain't the way I want to be. This is not the way I want to live my life. And I want my first thought not to be, what's wrong with you? Why don't you go in the other door?
As I recall, when the disciples brought children to Jesus, he kicked them and said, I don't have time for you.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's how it went. No,
something like that.
no, that wasn't. No.
Sorry.
No.
I always mess that up.
Yes, you do.
We just read that.
That's a mistake.
We just read that in the Little Children's Bible.
Did you?
It was an excellent story. My daughter couldn't get past the fact that one of the kids was touching Jesus' beard. It was an illustrated version, and the kid was touching his beard, and Grace kept saying, Jesus lets kids touch his beard. I said, well, I'm sure he does.
I can't wait till I get to heaven and I can touch the beard.
There's a funny tie with that, too. I think it was last week we read the story how, that they were in the boat and the storm was coming. Jesus was sleeping and they wake him up and they're all freaking out. And Jesus goes, be still, and comes. So we go out shopping to the store and it's raining and windy. And my 3-year-old daughter gets out of the car and goes, be still. And then she says, I can't do it. Only Jesus can do it. I said, you're right. Only Jesus can do it. She goes, well, you think he can come down? I said, well, he might be busy doing something else, but we'll talk to him about it later. We'll pray on it. I thought, well, at least she's paying attention to the stories. So that's pretty solid.
Yeah, she's thinking it through. I mean,
Yeah,
it's kinda cool.
at least she gets it, And she wants to touch Jesus' beard. I'm like, I want to touch Jesus' beard. This sounds awesome.
Why not?
Faith like a child. That's what she thinks about.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
that really is pretty cool.
Real quick, things that I was reading through this week is how God sees people in C4 kind of measuring up. If you look at in 1 Peter 2:9. It says, but you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. So, to God, we are acceptable, right? We are acceptable in his eyes. We're a chosen people, a holy nation, God's special possession. Are the people that we interact with acceptable to us?
No.
Oh, I'm pretty inconsistent.
For shame.
I'm pretty inconsistent. In Luke 12:24, says, consider the ravens, they do not sow or reap, they have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them, and how much more valuable you are than birds. So to God, we're valuable. Are the people around us valuable to me? Do I treat them as if they're valuable, acceptable and valuable?
We tend to only treat them valuable when we have something to value from them.
Exactly.
If I have nothing to gain, then,
Number 2.
Like a warm spot by a closed door.
And then Isaiah 43:4 says, since you are precious and honored in my sight, and because I love you, I will give people in exchange for you, nations in exchange for your life. To God, we are precious and honored and loved. To the people around us, do I treat them as precious and honored and loved? Stuff to work on this week, man. Just something to think and pray about. Like, if we are acceptable to God, we are valuable to God, and we are precious and honored and loved. Do we think of the people around us in the same way? Are they acceptable to us? Are they valuable to us? Are they precious and honored and loved? Pretty sure there's a gap.
I wish I wouldn't have told that Red Lobster story. I came off as a real jerk.